The planet was silent, save for the soft winds that blew through the ruins. What once stood as a bustling hub of life and culture had been reduced to rubble, a mere shadow of its former self. Jagged remains of buildings jutted from the ground, their charred frames the only markers of a civilization that had been wiped from existence in a galactic war that had left no survivors, except one. Amidst the destruction, small paws padded carefully through the debris. The creature was no bigger than a human kitten, its fur a swirling pattern of silver and black, shimmering faintly even in the dim light of the dying sun. Its eyes, large and glowing with a soft amber hue, held an intelligence beyond its years, but they were clouded with pain and fear. Its breaths came in shallow, shaky gasps as it searched for warmth, for shelter, for something, anything, that would stop the cold emptiness from swallowing it whole. It was the last of its kind. Once a proud race known not for their physical might, but for their extraordinary ability to connect emotionally with other beings, they had been targeted, hunted, and systematically wiped out. They were deemed weak, useless in the brutal calculus of war. No one had come to their aid. Not even the mighty Galactic Council. Far away, in the gleaming halls of the Council's meeting chamber, the topic of the species' extinction barely registered as a blip on the radar. Representatives from various powerful species sat in their seats, coldly discussing the aftermath of the war. Resources were strained. The galaxy was recovering. Priorities needed to be set. There was no room for sentimentality. Their extinction was inevitable, one council member said dismissively. They contributed nothing to the war effort. No resources, no soldiers. Their survival offers no strategic benefit. Another nodded in agreement. We have more pressing matters. There are countless planets in need of rebuilding. We can't waste resources on irrelevant species. And so, with a wave of the hand, a decision was made. The last member of the kitten-like race, barely clinging to life on a desolate world, was deemed not worth saving. The council moved on to the next item on the agenda, the fate of an entire species slipping into forgotten history. Back on the planet, the kitten's soft meal barely rose above the whispering winds. It could feel the apathy, the cold indifference of the galaxy pressing down on it. Its species had been known for their unique gift, an ability to project their emotions, to share feelings of peace, comfort, and empathy with others. But now, there was no one left to feel. No one left to care. It crawled under a broken beam, its fur stained with dirt and soot, its small body trembling from the effort. The days had blurred together, hunger gnawing at its belly, the sharp pain of abandonment sharper than the cold. The stars above, once a symbol of hope, now seemed distant and unreachable, like everything else that had been taken from it. As the kitten lay there, exhausted and on the brink of giving up, it sensed something. A flicker of warmth, not from the dying sun, but from a source it had not felt before. It was faint, but growing, like the rising of a distant star. For the first time in days, the kitten felt a shift in the oppressive emptiness. Far beyond the reach of the Council's cold calculations, humans had intercepted a distress signal. They were not bound by the same rigid thinking of the Council. They didn't weigh life in terms of strategic advantage or military might. They valued something more. The humans, though far from the scene, were approaching. They didn't know what awaited them on the planet, but they knew one thing: life, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, was worth saving. And they were coming, guided not by protocol, but by the one trait that set them apart from so many others in the galaxy: compassion. The kitten, though it didn't yet understand, had felt it. A faint pulse of hope, something it had long thought lost. The human crew received the signal while mapping the outer reaches of a war-torn system. It was weak, barely registering on their scanners, but it was enough to catch their attention. There was something about it, a faint, pulsing distress call that didn't align with any known species code. They debated briefly about whether to investigate. Most teams would have ignored it. After all, the galaxy was full of lost causes, and their mission had priorities. But humans weren't wired to look away. They arrived at the desolate planet, unsure of what they'd find. Scanners picked up nothing living at first, only the ghostly remnants of buildings, shattered landscapes, and the stillness that only follows great devastation. It was a scene all too familiar after the Galactic War. As they approached the surface, they detected a faint life sign, a signal so weak it seemed impossible to survive in such a place. But it was there, and that was all they needed. They moved quickly, cautiously, picking their way through the rubble. As they neared the source, they saw it, a small figure, barely noticeable amidst the debris. It was huddled in the shadow of a broken beam, unmoving. One of the crew knelt down, and what they saw tugged at them in a way that words couldn't express. It was an alien, resembling a kitten in size and shape, its fur dirty and matted, its glowing eyes dim and full of pain. But it was alive, though just barely. More than the physical signs of suffering, they felt something deeper. The crew members were hit by a wave of emotions, fear, loneliness, abandonment, emanating from the tiny creature. It wasn't just a wounded animal. It was projecting its emotions, a silent cry for help that had reached across the vastness of space to them. They didn't hesitate. While other species might have dismissed it as too far gone, too weak to save, the humans didn't see it that way. One of them gently scooped the kitten up, wrapping it in a survival blanket. It stirred weakly, its body trembling, but there was a flicker of recognition in its eyes, as if it could feel the warmth of their intentions. The decision to take it aboard wasn't questioned. The crew, all hardened by the war, knew that even in the face of overwhelming odds, some lives were worth saving simply because they were lives. They returned to the ship, securing the kitten in their med bay, knowing it wouldn't be easy. The other species may have abandoned it, but the humans would not. Once on board, they set to work. Every member of the team played a part in nursing the kitten back to health. They hydrated it, provided nutrients, and cleaned the dirt from its fur. Slowly, it began to regain some strength, but more importantly, it began to sense the care and concern of those around it. The humans spoke softly to it, their voices calm and reassuring, knowing that even if the creature didn't understand their words, it could feel their intent. At first, the kitten was hesitant, too weak and traumatized to respond fully. But as the hours passed, it began to react, sensing the genuine concern in the humans. It wasn't just about physical healing, there was something deeper happening. The kitten's ability to project emotions became more pronounced, but instead of fear and pain, it started to send out faint pulses of gratitude. The humans could feel it, a subtle shift in the air around them, and it solidified their bond. They were amazed by the depth of the kitten's emotional range. It wasn't just surviving, it was reaching out, connecting with them in a way they had never experienced with another species. What others had seen as weakness, the humans recognized as a profound strength. This little creature could communicate in a language far beyond words. It wasn't just a wounded animal, it was a sentient being with feelings, capable of forming deep emotional connections. Over the next few days, the bond between the humans and the kitten grew. The humans, already protective of their new charge, found themselves becoming emotionally invested in its survival and well-being. The kitten, in turn, grew more trusting, sensing that it was safe, that these humans wouldn't leave it behind like so many others had. It would look up at them with those glowing eyes, projecting warmth, and they felt it, an undeniable connection. As the humans continued to care for the kitten, they started noticing subtle changes, not just in the creature's demeanor, but in themselves. There was a sense of calm that seemed to settle over the crew whenever they were near the kitten. Even in the high-stress environment of space travel, where nerves often ran high, the team found themselves more composed, more at ease. They attributed it at first to the simple joy of caring for a helpless creature, but soon they realized something more was at play. One day, while performing routine maintenance in the ship, one of the crew members suffered an injury. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was bad enough to cause significant pain and hinder their ability to move freely. They were being treated in the med bay when the kitten, sensing the discomfort, approached them. Without prompting, it gently nestled against the injured crew member, its small body warm and comforting. What happened next took everyone by surprise. The crew member, who had been grimacing in pain, suddenly relaxed. The tension in their face melted away, and they let out a deep sigh, as if a great weight had been lifted. The room seemed to fill with a gentle, soothing energy, as if all the fear and discomfort were being drawn away. The kitten's eyes glowed faintly, and the air around them felt lighter, almost healing. Within hours, the crew members' condition improved in ways that far exceeded the expected recovery time. At first, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. The humans had known about the kitten's ability to project emotions, but this was something more. It wasn't just calming fear or sharing warmth, it was actively helping to heal. The crew began to experiment, not in a cold, scientific way, but with genuine curiosity and care. They realized that the kitten had an instinctual ability to project healing emotions, not just to soothe the mind, but to promote physical recovery as well. This discovery sent ripples through the crew. The kitten, once seen as fragile and in need of protection, was now revealing itself to be far more powerful than anyone could have imagined. The humans, through their compassion and willingness to care for what others had deemed weak, had unlocked this extraordinary potential. What the rest of the galaxy had missed, had outright rejected, was now becoming a symbol of hope. The kitten's powers didn't stop at healing individuals. As time went on, the crew noticed something even more profound. Whenever tensions arose, whether during disagreements or stressful situations, the presence of the kitten seemed to diffuse the atmosphere. Arguments that might have escalated were quickly resolved, misunderstandings were cleared up with ease, and even long-standing grudges between crew members seemed to melt away when the kitten was near. It was as if the kitten's emotional projections had the power to bridge divides, to foster understanding where there had once been none. The humans began to realize the far-reaching implications of the kitten's abilities. It wasn't just about healing physical wounds, it was about healing emotional ones too. The kitten had the potential to bring together species that had been divided for centuries, to unite those who had been torn apart by war and conflict. Its emotional empathy wasn't a weakness, it was a strength far beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Word of the kitten's powers began to spread beyond the crew, reaching the wider galactic community. At first, the other species were skeptical, dismissing the rumors as fanciful tales. But as more and more stories surfaced of the humans' miraculous discovery, interest grew. Representatives from various factions started sending inquiries, eager to learn more about this extraordinary creature. However, their motives were far from pure. While the humans saw the kitten as a symbol of hope and cooperation, others saw it as a tool. The Council, the same group that had once dismissed the species as weak and expendable, now wanted to claim the kitten's powers for themselves. They didn't see the emotional connection, they saw only an opportunity to control and exploit. They wanted to harness the kitten's abilities, not for healing or unity, but for their own gain, to use it as a weapon in the ongoing power struggles that plagued the galaxy. The humans, however, understood something that the others didn't. The kitten's strength wasn't just in its abilities, it was in the way it connected with others. Its powers couldn't be exploited like a machine or a weapon. They were tied to its emotional bonds, its ability to sense and project genuine care and empathy. To try and control it would be to destroy the very thing that made it powerful. And so, the humans stood firm. They refused to let the kitten fall into the hands of those who would use it for selfish ends. They continued to protect it, knowing that its true strength lay not in what it could do, but in the way it could bring people together. In a galaxy torn apart by conflict, the humans saw the kitten for what it truly was, a beacon of hope, a symbol of the power of compassion and empathy. As the stories of the kitten's extraordinary abilities spread throughout the galaxy, it wasn't long before they reached the ears of the Galactic Council. The same council that had once dismissed the species as weak and inconsequential now found themselves facing a new reality. Word of the kitten's healing powers, its ability to bridge emotional divides and foster unity, had created a stir. The council, previously unmoved by its plight, could no longer afford to ignore what was unfolding. Public opinion among the galaxy's citizens was shifting, and even the council's ironclad grip on power was beginning to feel the strain. The council issued a formal request for a meeting with the humans and the kitten, a move that caught the attention of every corner of the galaxy. They framed it as a diplomatic gesture, claiming they wanted to discuss the kitten's role in the broader galactic landscape. But the humans knew better. They could see through the council's carefully worded invitation. The council didn't care about the kitten's well-being or its potential to heal and unite. They saw only an opportunity to seize control of something they couldn't understand. Still, the humans accepted the meeting, but not out of any desire to negotiate. They had no intention of handing the kitten over to the council, or allowing its powers to be exploited. The meeting was held on neutral ground, with representatives from various species in attendance. It was a spectacle, a stage set for political maneuvering, but the humans weren't here to play games. As the council began their formal speeches, they made it clear that they believed the kitten's abilities were too important to be left in the hands of a single species. They spoke of unity, of the need for the galaxy to work together for the greater good, but their words were empty. They wanted control, not cooperation. The humans, however, were not swayed. One of the human representatives spoke up, their voice steady and firm. They pointed out the obvious, that the council had abandoned the kitten species when it suited them, deeming them too weak to save. And now, after discovering its hidden potential, they sought to exploit it for their own gain. The humans made it clear that they wouldn't allow that to happen. The kitten wasn't a weapon or a tool to be used. Its powers, they argued, were tied to its ability to feel and project emotions, to connect with others on a deep, personal level. To try to control it would be to destroy everything that made it special. The tension in the room was palpable. The council members, unused to being challenged in such a direct manner, exchanged uneasy glances. The humans had struck a nerve, and everyone in the room could feel it. The debate grew heated, with representatives from different species chiming in, some siding with the humans, others backing the council's claim. Then, without warning, a crisis erupted. A dispute between two rival factions attending the meeting escalated into a full-blown confrontation. Voices were raised, tempers flared, and before anyone could intervene, the situation threatened to spiral into violence. The council chamber was on the verge of chaos, and for a moment, it seemed that everything was about to fall apart. But then, the kitten acted. It had been sitting quietly beside its human protectors, watching the tension build. Now, sensing the overwhelming emotions in the room, it stood up, its small frame glowing with an inner light. The air in the chamber seemed to shift as the kitten projected a wave of pure, calming empathy. It wasn't forceful or aggressive, but it was undeniable. The anger and hostility that had filled the room moments before began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of peace and understanding. The effect was immediate. Those who had been shouting and threatening each other moments ago stopped in their tracks, their expressions softening. They looked at one another not as enemies, but as fellow beings, each with their own fears and struggles. The kitten's projection had reached them all, cutting through the noise and tension, reminding them of their shared humanity, or rather, their shared sentience. In that moment, the room was united. The council members, who had been preparing to assert their authority, were left speechless. They had seen what true power looked like, and it wasn't in control or domination. It was in the ability to heal, to bring people together. The kitten, with its small, fragile frame and its quiet strength, had done what the council could not. It had united a room full of individuals who had every reason to hate each other. For the first time, the Galactic Council was forced to reconsider its stance. They couldn't deny the reality of what had just happened. The kitten, once abandoned and deemed worthless, had just prevented a crisis through nothing more than empathy. It had shown them a new kind of strength, one that couldn't be measured in military might or political power. The humans stood tall, knowing they had made their point. The kitten, now a symbol of hope, had proven that strength wasn't about who had the most resources or the most influence. It was about compassion, cooperation, and the ability to see potential where others saw only weakness. In the wake of the meeting, the galaxy began to change. The kitten, alongside its human protectors, became a beacon of a new era, an era of unity, where species worked together not out of fear or necessity, but out of a genuine desire to understand and support one another. The humans, through their compassion, had reshaped the galaxy's views on what it meant to be strong. And in doing so, they had proven once again that humanity's greatest power wasn't in its technology or its warfare, but in its ability to care.